right here. But I thought to start today with something that really blew my mind and that I am going to put it into our Nudge Away Diabetes book. And is um, the testimonial from a person that, uh, I mean, it just like so much, he surprised me. So I want to share first his picture because he had allowed me to do that. And meanwhile I'm doing this, I want to talk a little bit about his story. So I want to tell you, he said right here, and I'm reading off of this paper, in March of 2019, I was diagnosed with diabetes. I had not been feeling well and decided to go to the doctor because my body was telling me that something was wrong. I felt sluggish, constantly had to urinate, and was craving orange juice to the point that I was drinking a carton almost every other day by myself. I have issues with high blood pressure, but this felt differently. I was assumed getting diabetes was something to do with the sweet tooth and eating too much food with sugar. My problem was eating too much carbs. I ate pasta, rice, breads daily and did not realize the carbs turn into sugar. I knew I had to do something, and I had seen the specialist about weight loss. Now we're looking at bariatric surgery right here. Before being diagnosed as diabetic. At this point, I felt lost. I didn't think I could do something on my own way. I felt really bad. The PA I see at my doctor office had a feeling I had gone from pre-diabetic status to diabetic. So she sent me for lab work. I had to go into the office for follow-up appointment for the labs, which didn't feel reassuring. And the PA confirmed that I was diabetic. She shared my A1C results and they were 10.4. She immediately prescribed medication, and when my wife and I read what side effects those medications had, I was really concerned. One of the side effects was drowsiness, and another was possible diarrhea. At this point in time, I drove for work. He's a truck driver, so diarrhea and nausea and insomnia or whatever is not a good thing for a truck driver. At this point in time, I drove for work. So neither of these side effects would have been good. I decided not to take the medication and told myself I need to figure out a different way to help this. My in-laws are both Lions. By the way, they're Lions of the Rialto Club. And my mother-in-law asked their Lions to sponsor me for the Adult Winter Lions Diabetes Camp in 2019. The camp was organized by Lion Lydia Petrov-Jones, founder and CEO of Lions Diabetes Camp of Southern California. On May 2019, I stepped into the camp. I was nervous to go since I didn't know what to expect. Just in the first day of camp, I had lots of fun and learned so much from Dr. Hizom, also from the nurses and the rest of the staff at camp. Through the diabetes camp, I learned about the good fats versus the bad fats, how people use carb for energy, but those turn into excess fat when not burned properly. At the camp, we were taught about superfoods that help your body to burn fats faster, good oils to use for your foods, and the good fats to eat that help your body burn calories properly and not raise your blood sugar. Through that weekend, I lost 4 pounds. just from the nutrition foods we ate from breakfast, lunch, and dinner while at camp. This proved to me that the type of foods would work and would keep me away from medication and insulin shots to control my diabetes. Once I home, I found what worked for me and my body, since everyone is different. Once I got on the path, I have not looked back because of the knowledge I obtained from the Lions Diabetes Camp. I was still thinking of weight loss surgery, but now I got my blood work done after 6 months after my diagnosis, and about 4 months after camp, when I went to the appointment with my PA, I found out that I lost 70 pounds. And my A1C was now 5.5. And she told me that an A1C under 5.7 is the absence of diabetes. She was shocked and immediately proud to learn and asked me what kind of lifestyle I was doing. When I realized I could do this by my own through a proper food and diet and education and making lifestyle changes, I decided I would not need to go to bariatric surgery. I hope my testimonial can be an inspiration for someone else who feels they can't do this. For someone who feels like they have no option, I hope this helps them to see they have a choice and they can do this too. With a strong support and knowledge, they can make healthy changes as well. Even through my PA, has told me I only have to check my blood sugar in the morning, I continue to treat myself as if I am full-blown diabetic and check my blood sugar 3 times a day. I am glad to report that my glucose numbers are within normal range each time I check it. As I said before, everyone's body is different in the way they will respond. But for me, this is my lifesaver. I owe my renew of life to everybody at camp, to Dr. Hison for the knowledge he gave me, Lion Lydia Petro Jones that promoted healthy living and proper food lifestyle, and most of all, to my mother-in-law, Kathy. So with this is the report, and you can see him right here. He also had sent me his A1 report, so that's going to be included in the book. What a nice testimony, isn't it? You know, that was wonderful. He is working now, and does come home about 8 o'clock, so he doesn't have time to be here, but he's still in contact with all of us. So with that, I'm going to open this meeting, and I'm hoping to have more testimonials of people that have been here. I need 2 more, and if they are here, they can share it. Otherwise, I will be sharing as well. So we have about 25 people, and kind of that's what we are arranging. So I would like to start this. So Dr. Hison, take it, and let's do this.
All right, great. Well, that's wonderful. Miguel is quite good. I actually have a picture of him in mind. So I thought we'd have a little bit of fun today. You guys have been through a lot of stuff. So I wanted to see if I could share my screen. So sorry, it took me 1 second here. Let's try that. And then let's say, do the slideshow from the beginning. Okay, it's not playing. Huh. Sorry, it's looking at this to go.
No problem. No problem. I'm still admitting people.
Yeah, sorry, it might be it's on 2 different slideshows. I'm not sure why it's not going. Let's try this then. That might work. Oh, well, I may not get it to actually play the slideshow then. Let me just kind of close a bunch of stuff down.
You need to put it in slide mode.
I know, but I think I have a couple of them open
Oh, okay.
because I was practicing for a second. That might do it. That's out of there. Try this, try that. There we go. And then we'll change display setting. All right, can you guys see that now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So what we're going to do tonight is have a little bit of fun, and depending on how this goes, we can go in any number of directions. But I always want to try to keep giving you different ways of thinking about this. So really want to, again, always express my gratitude to Lydia, actually to Alan and Andy, who were the ones that twisted my arm and brought Lydia over to me, to talk about this diabetes camp. And just wanted to kind of share a little bit of what we've done in the last year. It's sort of a kind of a year-long thing. So Lions Club International's international program, their platform is what intrigued me, and especially the Temecula Lions in particular are very open to sort of a little bit of a wild physician like myself trying to bring the research and make it a resource for the patients. And it's really the only organization that's looking at type 2 diabetes, which is 1/3 of the healthcare dollars. So just so you know, we did start, and Lydia, look at this, September 14th, so almost exactly a year ago.
1 year.
We used the new residence at the hospital, and we put on a one-day program out in Ontario. So in May is when Miguel was there, and we did the weekend. And we did this as a one-day. And then in January, this is pre-COVID, as you'll see, we did these meetups, very tight quarters at Uncle Bob's barbecue. So, we're just trying to figure out a way to get the word out. And then when this pandemic called COVID, which actually, diabetics like their carbohydrates, but unfortunately COVID-19 likes carbohydrates. And unfortunately, most of the deaths we've had at the local hospitals have been with the diabetics. So that's why this becomes even more important. So then this summer, we put on a 6-week diabetic course that will ultimately be put onto our website that we are getting. And then this summer, I'm in charge of the Future Physician Leader Program with a lot of bright minds and young folks that are pre-med or even med students. And we actually put out a book. And so we went to #1 on Amazon in 2012. And there's Miguel in the back here. So this was the group that was in that weekend, Lydia, about 18 months ago, that kind of started all of this. We had Michelle, one of the nurses, and it really worked out well to kind of get this started off the ground. And so from there, we published the book. It is now a Kindle version, but we just got awarded today 3 interns for the next 3 months. So the city of Temecula, through some government grants, awarded us 3 interns for the next 3 months. And hopefully they will help us to create a written version of this book. And again, all the proceeds from this book go to the Lions Club International camp. We're going to do workbooks that physicians can give to their patients to help them to monitor their diabetes better. And then we're hoping to do an Audible books on tape type version of the book. So we should have multiple revenues that will help to fund our project and get our word out. So with that, just to make sure we stay focused, I do think that it's important for us to care for the caretakers. And you as diabetics, if you're out there or know someone who is, these are some of the things that your doctor's gonna want you to do. And what would help him or her is to sort of volunteer to get these things done. Get your eyes checked every year. It's just very important to make sure you're not starting to get diabetic retinopathy. Diabetes type 2 is the #1 cause of blindness in the United States. Get a hemoglobin A1C every 3 months. The more you measure, the better you manage. And just really try to get that below that 6 number. And ideally, you'd love to get it below 6 without any medicines. But hemoglobin A1C is a very good measure of how your blood sugar has been doing over the last 3 months. So it's a good way to track that. And then check your kidneys, get your microalbumin. It's a special urine test once a year to make sure that your kidneys are doing okay. And finally, get this, it's a monofilament's another name for a fishing line where they check the sensation to your feet. So these are some things, 4 little things that can really change everything, because then you'll know where you're at. And the more often you get things checked, the better you do. So with that, I kind of want to sort of put on my superhero sort of mentality. And, all the superheroes put their, wear their underwears on the outside of their pants. And Superman is no exception. But, Superman is powerless to kryptonite. And we all kind of know that. Although I do laugh, those of you that with some gray hair remember when we used to watch these comics and they would shoot the bullets and he could take the bullets, but then they'd throw the gun and he would duck. Like, really? You're afraid of the gun? I don't know. I thought that was funny. So Superman is powerless to kryptonite, but you know what? Diabetics are powerless to carbohydrates. That's their kryptonite. And interestingly, as you know, Woody, and the carbs are everywhere. I mean, carbs are everywhere, and carbs come in a bunch of different names. They have cool listening names like agave nectar, grape sugar syrup. I mean, they all sound great, but they all break down to sugar. And at the end of the day, I mean, you really have to understand that carbs are non-essential. And this is a movie that's out there, Stop the Carbohydrate Life. There's literally no need for carbs. Now, you can eat carbs, but I think you have to respect the carbs. So they're non-essential. And as Andy told us, they're detrimental. This is a picture of Lydia's teeth this morning. I'm kidding. Lydia, it's not your teeth. And I just was at the foot preservation. We're doing a program with Loma Linda on this. So it's just horrible. And then besides them being non-essential, detrimental, you could argue that the worst thing is they're addicting. How many people, let's see a show of hands, have a sweet tooth? I'm kidding. But everybody wants their morning muffin. Everybody wants their sugary, Starbucks drink. It really is addicting. So at the end of the day, the big deal, I think, and the phrase I would like to kind of get out there is respect your carbs. Not all carbs are equal. That if you have a lot of fiber, low glycemic, then these are fine. And essentially, you can have quite a bit of these, not unlimited, because they're still carbs and everyone has to find their fuel, but these are, quote, the best carbs out there. Now, what about fruit? I mean, isn't fruit good for type 2 diabetics? Isn't there are a lot of reasons to eat fruit? They can fight cancer, they give you energy, they protect your heart, and on and on and on. So, and everyone says, well, this is how we were designed. This is what we've been eating for thousands of years. But is it really? So I wanted to show you a little bit of the history of fruit. And if you don't mind, I'll just show you a couple things. So this is kind of an interesting, well, let's see, let's start with this. So if you could bear with me, let me re-share my screen. But I just wanted you to learn how fruit has changed and that the fruit we eat now is not the fruit of our ancestors.
You may take the appearance of everyday fruit and veggies for granted, but did you know they
Can
haven't
you hear
always
that?
looked like they
Yes.
currently do? Through selective breeding, humans have been molding fruits and vegetables to our liking, changing the way they look drastically over the years. Here are 10 fruits and veggies that looked very different before we started cultivating them. Number 10, corn. The evolution of corn is a great example of how we can significantly change a vegetable over time. Corn actually comes from a Mexican grass called tisenti. The barely edible tisenti is small, skinny, and it has very few kernels. Back then, these kernels were also hard to reach, since they were encased by a hard shell. To peel it, you had to hit it with a hard object several times. It's also speculated that it had a very dry taste, like a raw potato. The link between corn and tisenti wasn't very easy to find, actually. For many years, nobody knew where corn came from, since it doesn't look like anything that grows in the wild. It was only after finding several similar chromosomes between the two that this link was determined. One scientist even managed to pop a Tisenti kernel. The cultivation of Tisenti to modern-day corn came about as, for each subsequent harvest, we selective bred the more desirable Tisenti plants that had larger and more rows of kernels. This led to corn we know today, which is easy to peel and 1,000 times larger. Modern corn also contains 4 times more sugar compared to the natural old version of corn. Number 9. Avocado. The millennials' favorite fruit has gone through quite a lot of change, and it's all for the better. In the wild, avocados are very small and can easily fit into the center of your palm. Growing to about 3 inches in diameter, the pit of the wild avocado takes almost all the space inside the fruit, leaving little room for the fruit's famous green flesh. Roughly speaking, it would take close to 10 wild avocados to get the same amount of flesh that you would get with a single modern version of the fruit. Worse yet, the little flesh that it has doesn't taste very good. It has a rougher, grittier quality, in contrast to the creamy and tasty characteristic of the modern avocado. The wild avocado was also encased in a hard shell, quite different from the leathery, fleshy kind of skin that the current avocado has. Thankfully, our ancestors improved the fruit in significant ways, selectively breeding it, allowing us to have this tasty fruit that goes so well on toast. Number 8. Peach. The peach is another example of our ancestors using selective breeding to create a bigger and tastier version of a fruit. Domesticated by the Chinese around 4000 BC, the original peach was very small and resembled a cherry. It had a waxy skin and only 64% of edible flesh. It also had a taste that was described as earthly, sweet, sour, and slightly salty, similar to a lentil. Also, a big amount of the wild peach was occupied by the fruit stone, close to 34%. After thousands of years, farmers got to the version of the peach we have today. The current modern peach has soft, edible skin and is 64 times larger. It also has 90% of edible flesh, a vast increase from the wild peach. The stone in the current peach has also dramatically decreased in size, making up for only 10% of the fruit. The current peach is also 27% juicier and tastes 4% sweeter. All around, the peach has just gotten better through the ages. Number 7. Eggplant.
It's got some amazing brightness.
Sorry.
It's not distracting. It's not annoying my eyes. It is a world of difference.
The wild variation of the eggplant is completely unrecognizable from the modern version we have today. Eggplants used to come in a variety of shapes, but most of them were round. In fact, the name eggplant actually comes from the fact that they were often white and round, hence looking like an egg that grows from a plant. They had a range of different colors like yellow, white, and even blue. Some of the earliest versions of the eggplant also had spines that connected to its flower. It's believed that the domestication of the eggplant started in places like China, India, and Thailand. They were initially used only for medicinal reasons, because the wild eggplant had a bitter aftertaste. Through selective breeding, we arrived at the modern eggplant, with its purple color and oblong shape. The spine has disappeared, giving way to its stem that connects to its flower. Better yet, the eggplant is now edible and really delicious. Number 6. Strawberry. Oftentimes, as shown in this video, humans molded fruits and vegetables to make them taste better. However, the opposite happened in the case of the wild strawberry. Known as Fragaria vesca, the wild strawberry actually tasted sweeter and is considered the better version of the fruit. However, the wild strawberry is much smaller than its modern version. So, why did the modern version of the strawberry lose its flavor? Reportedly, that's because other factors started coming into play, influencing how these fruits evolved. Farmers started favoring size, resistance to disease, and a better and bigger appearance, which ended up decreasing the taste of the fruit. The modern strawberry actually started to take shape when a French spy brought the Chilean version of the strawberry over to France. This variation of the fruit was significantly bigger than the ones grown in Europe at the time. The two species of strawberry were crossed and gave rise to the modern strawberry of today. Fun fact: what may look like seeds in the wild strawberry are actually called achenes. They are themselves tiny fruits with tiny seeds inside of them. Number 5. Tomato. We have been shaping the tomato to our own taste for thousands of years. The evolution of the tomatoes happened in 2 stages. First, there was the wild ancestor of the tomatoes. These fruits had a size similar to berries and came in a bunch of different colors, like yellow, green, and purple. It's reported that the first cultivated tomatoes were small and yellow, which earned them the name golden apple. These wild tomatoes, after a large span of time, eventually evolved into the cherry tomato. From the cherry tomato, humans ultimately developed the big fruited red tomato, which is the fruit's most recognizable form. However, These changes weren't all for the best. Over the years, the tomato lost some of its genes that create sugar, making it less flavorful. Because of all the selective breeding the tomato has been through, most consider that there is little room to improve on the fruit's genetic traits. So it's probable that the tomato will stay largely the same for the near future. Number 4. Carrot. Wild carrots look nothing like the orange carrots we know today. They were found in Persia around the 10th century and were either white or purple. These carrots were very thin, with forked roots and a strong, powerful flavor. The seeds of these types of carrots eventually made its way to Europe, where they were selectively bred over centuries in order to reduce their bitterness and increase their sweetness and size. These improved carrots still came in a variety of different colors like red, yellow, and purple. The bright orange version of the modern carrot only came about for political reasons. Back in the 17th century, the Dutch were known mainly as carrot farmers, and it was there that the orange variation started to be cultivated. The Dutch started growing this variation in abundance because they saw it as a tribute to William of Orange, who led the Netherlands to independence. From there, the color stuck and became the primary version of the carrot we all know. Number 3. Cucumber. You probably wouldn't guess that the wild cucumber is actually related to the modern version of the cucumber we have nowadays. The wild cucumber has a distinct look and is very easy to spot. It has an oval or spherical shape and is covered in spikes. These spikes usually grow to at least 1.2 inches in diameter, but can go up to 8 inches long. These wild cucumbers usually hold 4 seeds inside of them. Although related to the cucumbers we're used to, this prickly version of the vegetable is not edible and is considered toxic. Some reports say that ingesting them could even kill you. The cucumber is believed to be native to India. It was cultivated originally for medicinal reasons. The modern cucumber bears little resemblance to its wild version. It has a cylindrical shape with multiple seeds inside of it, and it can grow as large as 24 inches long. Modern cucumbers are also very edible and low in calories, given that they are almost 90% water. Number 2. Banana. The wild banana is quite different from the yellow. With the Home Depot app, your phone is your most powerful
Sorry
tool.
again.
Find just what you need. Yellow snack that we have today. Originally, they were stocky and hard, filled with large and tough seeds that were spread across the fruit's interior. Because of the hard seeds, these bananas were inedible. That's why most assume that these wild fruits were cooked and then eaten. Otherwise, humans would not have started cultivating it. It's believed that the first bananas were farmed 10,000 years ago in the region that is now Papua New Guinea. The bananas we have today are a hybrid of 2 wild banana varieties, Musa acuminata and Musa bulbiciana, which eventually developed into the well-known bright yellow fruit with its peelable cover. The current banana has smaller seed, more nutrients, and tastes better than its wild counterpart. However, it's said that the fruit needs to evolve or they might go extinct. That's because right now, these bananas lack genetic diversity. This makes the fruit increasingly vulnerable to pests and diseases that could devastate the banana industry. Hopefully, scientists will manage to find a viable alternative before it comes to that. Before I reveal the most outrageous example in this list, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to Be Amazed. We upload amazing fact-filled videos every day, so don't miss out on learning some amazing new information. Also, hit that bell icon for notifications on more amazing fact-filled videos. Number 1. Watermelon. Watermelons have actually been around for millennia, and they're one of the fruits that have most drastically changed in appearance over the years. The first recorded harvest of the fruit happened 5,000 years ago in Egypt. Those watermelons were unrecognizable by today's standard. They were a fraction of the size they are now, measuring around 2 inches in diameter. They were also extremely bitter, tasting nothing like the sweet fruit we have today. Over time, humans kept cultivating and molding the watermelon. By the 17th century, the watermelon from the outside largely resembled the ones of today. However, the inside part of the fruit would probably be considered bizarre by people today. Paintings from the era show a sliced open watermelon having swirly shapes inside, with 6 triangular pieces and a spiral of seed. The watermelon's flesh was also a lighter red. Over time, we got to the modern, fleshier version of the watermelon. The fruit is now over 1,500 times bigger than the original wild watermelon. Its fleshy interior also increased in size and became a more vibrant red over time. All our human effort made the watermelon bigger, juicier, and taste sweeter. What fruit or vegetable do you think changed the most? After this list, will you be able to look at them all the same? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.
So I just thought that that would be very good to look at. And then one other one I wanted to look at was about apples. And I just found this very, very fascinating. And this should be very quick.
In 1905, a book called The Apples of New York appeared. It featured hundreds of apples with names like Westfield Seek No Further or Esopus Spitzenberg, a favorite of Thomas Jefferson. If it wasn't for preservationists like Ron Joyner in Lansing, North Carolina, most apples, including the Virginia greening, an apple dating back to the 1700s with thick green skin and yellow, coarse, and sweet flesh, would no longer exist. And it isn't just apples. In the last century, nearly 75% of our agricultural crops have disappeared. They're simply gone. Today, farmers primarily grow 12 crops, and of these, we mainly eat potatoes, rice, corn, and wheat. Traditionally, farmers would save and share these seeds with each other. But now most seed production is controlled by only a few companies. The corn and soy seeds they produce are often genetically modified, which means that the seed's DNA has been altered. Farmers can no longer share these seeds because these companies have patents which limit their use. But food is a precious public resource. In many ways, it defines our culture because you are what you eat. Vandana Shiva is a global ambassador on a mission to save seeds around the world. For her, seed sovereignty is the farmer's right to breed and exchange diverse open source seeds, which can be saved and which are not patented, genetically modified, owned, or controlled by emerging seed giants. A global movement to preserve and share seeds has begun. People store seeds in seed banks. They gather at seed swaps, not just to share seeds, but to share knowledge and maybe stories as they rebuild their communities. They're preserving culture and biodiversity, one seed, one plant, and one person at a time. To learn more about terms like seed swaps and seed sovereignty, visit lexiconofsustainability.com. And remember, your words can change the world.
So I just thought that it's quite interesting to learn about the different ways seeds have changed. One of the other things, so I think we have to look at fruit in a special way, that it's not just something that's nice and sweet. I sort of joke that's how we got out of paradise, was a fruit. So I just really hear a lot that people say fruit and vegetable is exactly the same when they are quite different. And so all I want to do again is just keep improving our nutritional knowledge and kind of learn from that. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to bring up is, yeah, Andy, go ahead.
Question: What are your thoughts about the supplements some of these people talk about, like Juice Plus, which are fruits and vegetable supplements, versus people taking that for the nutrients, versus having regular fruits and vegetables, using those to replace in their diet for vitamins, things like that?
Yeah, the big deal has to do with the antidote to carbohydrates, and especially if you're diabetic, you're very sensitive to carbohydrate. The only antidote to carbohydrates is fiber. So when you make something a juice, you take away the fiber. For example, orange juice is 3 oranges. So I would love to see anyone here who's actually eaten 3 oranges. They never have. But all of us have drank a glass of orange juice. So that's my problem, is when you drink your calories, you actually take in quite a bit more, because you just don't get satiety, or you don't get filled up. So unless you're a high level athlete, I wouldn't recommend it. Obviously everyone's got to decide their own thing, but I'm sort of very much against low fiber carbohydrates. That's really been the challenge. And especially a lot of these things are highly processed. Because again, at the end of the day, it all spikes insulin. So then the other concept, any other questions at all on that? Good question, Andy. The other question has to do with calories, because calories are quite common. People always say, well, I burned off this many calories. I have this many calories I'm eating. But it's sort of a false concept. And I wanted to at least kind of encourage folks, especially if you have diabetes. Frankly, my admission is to count carbs, not calories. But Jason Fung, who's the leader in a lot of this, does a cute little thing on this. So if you don't mind, let's hear him talk about sort of the fallacy of calories.
The question I'm asking is, are all calories equally fattening? And the answer is no.
Let me, I gotta save this, sorry. I gotta share this, sorry. Let me share the screen. All right, hopefully you can see this now. Lydia, can you see this?
The question I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Jason Fung. He's a nephrologist. He got into this because he was tired of doing dialysis on people with diabetes. He's the one that wrote the book Diabetes Code, and I highly recommend you read that.
Is, are all calories equally fattening? And the answer is no. A calorie of brownies is not the same as a calorie of kale. It's just not. That's just common sense. But yet we try to pretend that they're the same. So if it's not about calories, it's really about our hormonal response to those calories, which is completely different depending on the different foods that we eat. But it depends on a lot of different things. Calories is a very simple measure, and that's really what is appealing about it, because not only does it tie together all different foods in a single measure, but you can also tie in things like exercise, and these sort of things are very appealing to companies that sell sugary beverages, for example. So they can say, okay, if you exercise, then it's okay to drink sugar-sweetened beverages because you've just exercised. There's a fundamental flaw in this whole energy balance equation. The energy balance equation says that body fat equals calories in minus calories out. So what we take from that is that we assume that if we simply reduce the amount of calories we take in, that we're going to reduce our body fat. But that's not actually true. That's not actually what the equation says. So there's actually two parts to it, the calories in and calories out. So the question really is, if you reduce your calories taken in, does your calories that your body expends stay stable? And the answer is no, and we've known this for about 100 years. So you can look at studies done in 1917 where they take volunteers and they reduce the number of calories that they eat by roughly 30%. Then they measure their basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories that they're burning on a day-to-day basis. And what you find is that the body has reduced its energy expenditure by about 30%. So if you're taking 30% less calories in and your body is using 30% less calories, then you're not going to lose any body fat, which was the whole point of the exercise. And this is really the failure of this sort of calories in, calories out model, is that they're not independent variables. The calories in and the calories out are not independent of each other. They go up and down together. So simply focusing in on the calories leads you to fail in your efforts to lose body fat.
So I just like that idea. So it is something that you just have to understand that it really, when it's all said and done, like you look at his thing here, it's really about your insulin. So in short, I'm kind of excited that more of these things are getting out there. This is sort of what we're trying to do. And then to finish up very quickly, because some of you may not have heard her talk, Sarah Hallberg is the person that kind of changed everything with her TED Talk about 7 years ago. And I just wanted to kind of show it quickly. Is that okay, Lydia? Do we have time?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. She's a little dynamo.
You're not sharing right now. There we go.
Is that okay now?
Yeah.
I have the best job in the world. I'm a doctor. No, believe me, that's not why. I'm an obesity doctor. I have the honor of working with a group of people subject to the last widely accepted prejudice, being fat. These people have suffered a lot by the time they see me. shame, guilt, blame, and outright discrimination. The attitude that many take, including those in healthcare, is that these people are to blame for their situation. If they could just control themselves, they wouldn't be overweight, and they're not motivated to change. Please let me tell you, this is not the case. The blame, if we've got to extend some here, has been with our advice, and it's time we change that. Obesity is a disease. It's not something created by lack of character. It's a hormonal disease, and there are many hormones involved, and one of the main ones is a hormone called insulin. Most obese individuals are resistant to this hormone, insulin. So what does that mean exactly, to be resistant to insulin? Well, insulin resistance is essentially a state of pre-pre type 2 diabetes. Insulin's job is to drive glucose or blood sugar into the cells where it can be used. In a nutshell, when someone is insulin resistant, they are having trouble getting blood sugar where it needs to go into those cells. And it just can't hang out in the blood after we eat, or we would all have a diabetic crisis after every meal. So when someone is resistant to insulin, the body's response to this is to just make more of it. And insulin levels will rise, and for a while, years even, this is going to keep up and blood sugar levels can remain normal. However, usually it can't keep up forever. And even at those elevated levels of insulin are not enough to keep blood sugar in the normal range. So it starts to rise. That's diabetes. It probably won't surprise you to hear that most of my patients have insulin resistance or diabetes. And if you're sitting there thinking, that's not me, you actually might want to think again, because almost 50% of adult Americans now have diabetes or prediabetes. That is almost 120 million of us. But that's hardly everyone who has issues with insulin, because as I was saying, people have elevated insulin levels due to insulin resistance for years, even decades before the diagnosis of even pre-diabetes is made. Plus, it's been shown that 16 to 25% of normal weight adults are also insulin resistant. So in case you're keeping track, this is a heck of a lot of us. So the trouble with insulin resistance is, if it goes up, we are at great risk for developing type 2 diabetes. But also, insulin makes us hungry. And the food we eat, much more likely to be stored as fat. Insulin is our fat storage hormone. So we can start to see how it's going to be a problem for diseases like obesity and metabolic issues like diabetes. But what if we trace this problem back to the beginning and we just didn't have so much glucose around that insulin needed to deal with? Let's take a look at how that could be. Everything you eat is either a carbohydrate, a protein, or a fat. And they all have a very different effect on glucose and therefore insulin levels, as you can see on the graph. So when we eat carbohydrates, our insulin and glucose are going to spike up fast. And with proteins, it looks a lot better. But take a look at what happens when we eat fat. Essentially nothing, a flat line. And this is going to wind up being very important. So now I want to translate that graph for you into a real world situation. I want you to go back and think about the last time you ate an American version of Chinese food. We all know there's rules associated with this, right? And the first rule is you're going to overeat, because the stop signal doesn't get sent until you are literally busting at the seams. Rule number 2 is in an hour, you're starving. Why? Well, because the rice in that meal caused glucose and insulin to skyrocket, which triggered hunger, fat storage, and cravings. So, if you're insulin resistant to begin with, and your insulin levels are already higher, you really are hungrier all the time. And we have this set up. Eat carbs, your glucose goes up, your insulin goes up, and you have hunger.
Sound is not there.
Really important, and it is. Let's focus just on type 2 diabetes, because the general recommendations are to tell patients with type 2 diabetes to consume 40 to 65 grams of carbohydrates per meal plus more snacks. Trust me on this, that's a lot of carbs. And remember what's going to happen to glucose and insulin, blood sugar and insulin when we eat them? Yes, we are essentially recommending that they eat exactly what's causing their problem. Sound crazy? It really, really is. Because at its root, diabetes is a state of carbohydrate toxicity. We can't get the blood sugar into the cells, and that causes a problem in the short term, but the long-term consequences are even greater. And insulin resistance is essentially a state of carbohydrate intolerance. So why, oh why, do we want to continue to recommend to people to eat them? The American Diabetes Association guidelines specifically state that there is inconclusive evidence to recommend a specific carbohydrate limit. But those guidelines go right on to say what we all know. Carbohydrate intake is the single biggest factor in blood sugar levels and therefore need for medication. These guidelines then go on to say, hey, look, if you're taking certain diabetic medications, you actually have to eat carbs. Otherwise, your blood sugar can go too low. Okay, so let's take a look at the vicious cycle that advice just set up. So it's eat carbs, so you have to take medicine. Then you have to eat more carbs so you avoid the side effect of those medications. And around we go. Even worse is that nowhere in the ADA guidelines is the goal of reversing type 2 diabetes. This needs to be changed because type 2 diabetes can be reversed in many, if not most situations, especially if we start early. Not only do we need to let people know this, but we have to start giving them the practical advice so they can do this. Consider carbs. First, here's a shocker for you. We don't need them. Seriously. Our minimum daily requirement for carbohydrates is 0. We have essential amino acids, those are proteins, essential fatty acids, but nope, no essential carb. A nutrient is essential if we have to have it to function, and we can't make it from something else. We make glucose, plenty of it, all the time. It's called gluconeogenesis. So we don't need them. The overconsumption of them is making us very sick, yet we are continuing to recommend to patients to consume close to, if not more, than half of their total energy intake every day from them. It doesn't make sense. Let's talk about what does. Cutting carbs, a lot. Yes, in my clinic, we teach patients to eat with carbs as the minority of their intake, not the majority. So how does that work? Well, when our patients decrease their carbs, their glucose goes down and they don't need as much insulin. So those insulin levels drop and fast. And this is very important because a study looking at our National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey data, better known as NHANES, showed that the single biggest risk factor for coronary artery disease is insulin resistance. It is responsible for a whopping 42% of heart attacks. Low carb intervention works so fast that we can literally pull people off of hundreds of units of insulin in days to weeks. One of my favorite stories is a very recent one. A young gal, but who had an almost 20-year history of type 2 diabetes, came in when a physician from another clinic told her she was just sick and should probably get used to it. Her diabetes was way out of control. This despite the fact that she was on multiple medications, including almost 300 units of insulin that was being injected into her continuously every day via a pump. All of this, remember, blood sugar still out of control. So we put her on a low-carb diet, and now let's fast forward 4 months. She lost weight, yes, but better than that, sick no more. Her blood sugar levels were now normal all of the time. This on, get this, no diabetes medication. Gone was the 300 units of insulin, no more insulin pump, no more pricking her finger multiple times each day. Gone all of it, no more diabetes. One of the greatest joys of my job is to be able to tell a patient like this that they no longer have diabetes, and we ceremoniously take it off their problem list together. So, are they cured? Is this a miracle? We'll leave that grandstanding to Dr. Oz. Cured would imply that it can't come back. And if they start eating excessive carbs again, it will. So no, not cured, but they don't have diabetes any longer. It's resolved, and it can stay that way as long as we keep away the cause. So what does this look like then? How does somebody eat this way? Well, first, let me tell you what it's not. Low carb is not zero carb, and it is not high protein. These are common criticisms that are so frustrating because they're not true. Next, if we take the carbs out, what are we going to put in? Because remember, there's only 3 macronutrients. If one goes down, one has to go up. My patients eat fat, and a lot of it. What, you say? I mean, what's going to happen when you eat fat? Well, let me tell you, you're going to be happy because fat tastes great, and it is incredibly satisfying. But remember, fat is the only macronutrient that's going to keep our glucose, blood sugar, and insulin levels low, and that is so important. So I want you to now hear my simple rules for eating. These rules, you have to remember, are even going to be more important if you are one of the tens of millions of Americans who have trouble with insulin levels. Rule number 1, if it says light, low fat, or fat-free, stays in the grocery store, because if they took the fat out, they put carbs and chemicals in. Rule number 2, eat food. The most important rule in low-carb nutrition. Real food does not come in a box, and no one should have to tell you real food is natural. You should know that when you look at it. Don't eat anything you don't like. And eat when you're hungry. Don't eat when you're not, no matter what the clock says. And number 5 is a simple way to remember what we want to avoid. No GPS, no grains, no potatoes, and no sugar. That last one is a biggie, right? No grains? Yeah, no grains. But we have to have them. Nope, they're a carb. But whole grains are so good for us. Well, first of all, there are actually very few foods out there that are truly whole grain, even when they say they are. Most foods that purport themselves to be whole grain are highly processed and the fiber benefit ruined, or they're coming with highly refined flour, usually both of these things. So if you are one of the truly insulin sensitive people, you can eat real whole grain. But if you are in the enormous slice of our population with insulin issues, it's making things worse. So what if you are one of the real insulin sensitive people? Can you still eat this way? Yes, I'm a great example. Over a year ago, I decided I would cut my carbs as low as I recommend to my diabetic patients. Now, it's not mandatory for my health like it is for theirs. I'm not insulin resistant, so would this be a problem? No, that's just the thing. Unless you have an exceedingly rare syndrome, then cutting carbs is going to be good for you, even if it's not necessary. I want to show you a couple pictures of my radical food. So this is a common breakfast in my house. So does it look like I just broke my own rule? I didn't, because this muffin is made with coconut flour. I bake all the time still. I just use non-grain-based flours. Coconut, almond, hazelnut, flax, they make delicious things. And this is a typical dinner in my house with a typical starch. That would be the sauteed mushrooms. No, my patients and I eat delightful food all of the time and enjoy it. But what about the research on this? I mean, is this just anecdotal evidence now from my clinic? No. There are dozens of randomized controlled trials looking at low-carb intervention for things like diabetes, cardiovascular risk factors, obesity. They're consistent. It works. There are even a large number of studies showing that low-carb nutrition decreases inflammatory markers, which is making it really exciting for diseases like cancer. We just finished a study in our clinic, and what we did is we took 50 type 2 diabetic patients that were treated with our low-carb, high-fat-based program, and we compared them to 50 patients who were treated with the ADA guidelines. And after 6 months, not only did we find a significant metabolic advantage for the low-carb group, but, and let's face it, this is important, a huge cost savings. Our analysis showed that our patients could save over $2,000 a year just on the diabetes meds they were no longer taking. Just think how fast that adds up in our diabetes epidemic now that we are spending $250 billion a year on in this country. So I want to show you a slide now that demonstrates where that savings is coming from. So this is looking just at the insulin difference in the two groups after 6 months. And what we can see is that the low carb group was able to decrease their insulin by almost 500 units a day. Whereas in the ADA treated group, they had to increase their insulin by almost 350 units a day. Two important things. Number one, insulin's expensive. And number two, not all the people in this study were even on insulin, which makes these results even more impressive. But what I would say is that this graph really represents two different approaches to treating this disease. The first, our group, with the goal of reversing disease, meaning they need less medicine. And the second group, which very clearly aligns with the ADA guidelines, which states that diabetes is a progressive disease requiring more medicine over time. Progressive, unless we take away the cause. So what's the problem then? Why is this not everywhere? Why isn't low carb the norm? There's two big reasons. Number one, status quo. It is hard to break. There are many agendas involved. We got this notion that low fat was the way to go decades ago. But a recent study just came out showing that there was zero randomized control evidence to recommend to Americans to remove the fat from our diet. And that's how the carbs got added in. It was essentially a huge experiment on millions of people, and it failed miserably. The second reason we don't see it everywhere is money. Don't be fooled. There's a lot of money to be made from keeping you sick. And what we see is with these specialty guideline panels, they are stacked with conflict of interest. So the solution to the diabetes epidemic in my clinic is exceedingly clear. Stop using medicine to treat food. And for a disease whose root cause is carbohydrates, take away the carbohydrates or at least cut them so we can remember what we used to know. We knew it a long time ago. This was said thousands of years ago, and we need in this day and age to get back to that notion. Thank you.
So this was quite a groundbreaking talk. And so I like to show that quite often because it does, in a very relatively quick way, kind of get the point across. So we're almost out of time, but I appreciate you guys putting up with my shenanigans. We do have the endocrinologist next week. I'm sorry, our next talk is on October the 7th, but I really appreciate everyone's attention, and we have a couple minutes. Does anyone have any questions or things they want to share?
But there was
I
a,
have a question. This is Dorothy.
okay.
Hi, Dorothy.
Aloha. All she talked about was taking out the carbohydrates and putting in the fat. What is the fat? Is she telling me to eat fried chicken?
No,
And
well, the main thing, there's good fats and bad fats. The main fats that are good are the ones, so just understand, processed anything is bad. Processed carbs, processed fats, processed proteins. So even processed meat. So the good fats are what we call tropical fats. So it'd be coconut oil, olive oil is the easiest one, avocado oil, you can have butter and fatty meats. So the big three for us most is fatty meats, butter, and olive oil. So it's a bit different. The big deal is high fats with high carbs is bad because carbs with anything is bad. But if you look at what most of the cardiologists will recommend is a carb consistent Mediterranean diet, which is exactly this. So I went to Italy twice when they to learn that. So it's very exciting that we have two fuels, just like when you go to the gas station. So what she's saying is, I call it ABD, always be dipping, always be dripping. But if you put, say, you have some piece of either meat, chicken, fish, and you layer it with olive oil and maybe lightly salt it, it's very satisfying, so you don't eat that much, but your blood sugar will just be rock solid low, and you have unbelievable energy. So I'm definitely not saying it's easy, but it's very doable. That's how I live. And we're happy to kind of bring you down this road. If you want more to learn about this, the best website is called dietdoctor.com, dietdoctor.com. It's $10 a month. The first month is free. They have a whole diabetes course. Jason Fung's on there. Sarah Hallberg's on there. And they have 500 videos just like this. So I'm not the only weirdo out there. There's other doctors like me. But we're very excited if we can continue to get the word out, keep doing data and presenting things. This will be the change, and we'll be able to help quite a few people save their limbs, but also save their lives. So hopefully that's helpful.
Okay, let's have another question. Mike, you are on mute. You are on mute. Okay. All right. Meanwhile, he finds the mute button here. Is there anybody else that have a question?
Here we go.
Okay.
Dr. Heesen,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Is diabetes hereditary, first of all? And then the following question is, because my ex developed diabetes, my son
That's diabetes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so a couple things, and this is the way I look at it. I would say yes, because we're all sensitive to carbohydrates. And the way I look at genetics and things is sort of like when you're driving a car, there's the windshield and the rearview mirror. Genetics is like the rearview mirror. It's good to know what happened in the past, but it's really what you do with it. It's out the windshield going forward. So if you eat poorly, you will get diabetes. If you say have a family history of diabetes and you do all the right stuff, you eat well, you move well, you sleep well, you will be well and you won't have the diabetes. So yes, it is a positive genetic risk, but there's something you could do about it. So the phrase is called epigenetics. There's genetics and there's something called epigenetics, and it's what you do about it. And my opinion, being sort of a little bit sarcastic, I just assume, and I don't mean this at all to anybody out here, that we all have shitty genes. I just assume you have horrible ancestors and do all the right stuff. Because even if you had good ancestors, you'd still want to do the right stuff. So for me, I'm all about behavior. It's not what you know, it's what you do. So that's what we're excited about. That's why we call it lifestyle medicine. It's not just the nutrition. It's your activities, it's all those things. But it does start with nutrition, and especially with weight loss, you have to understand weight loss is 100% nutrition. Exercise is nice, but exercise is like brushing your teeth. It's good to brush your teeth, Andy, but you're not bummed if you don't lose weight when you brush your teeth. When you exercise, I would not be bummed you don't lose weight. It really has to do with the hormones, like Dr. Fung says. So we're very excited. This is super weird. I appreciate all of you putting up with the shenanigans. But as you can see, I'm trying different ways, Superman, kryptonite, underwear on the outside of your pants, whatever it takes to get you to think of this differently so that hopefully you can find your fuel. Because at the end of the day, what I truly believe, if you can find your fuel, what the right fuel is for you, you'll find your future.
Dr. Heason, there was a question really quickly here I want to address from Elizabeth. What are the best food to bring down sugar quickly?
I'm sorry, what are the best fruits?
Foods.
Oh, what best foods? Yeah, the big deal, and this is the phrase one of the doctors, Dr. Naiman, talks about, is whatever the food will get you satisfied the quickest without really taking in a lot of carbohydrates. So, for example, when you go to a restaurant, they give you bread and things to make you hungrier. On the flip side, if you eat things that are very rich, which turns out to be the fat. So the more butter, frankly, if you just want to use that, literally, there's a nice little YouTube about this. Butter will make your pants fall off. it turns out the more butter you use, the less you will eat. It sounds super weird, but have you ever eaten a stick of butter? We've all eaten a box of Girl Scout cookies. And Lay's potato chips, you can't just eat one because you get hungrier, whereas butter makes you satisfied. So it sounds super weird, but the more butter, the better.
Okay, anybody else have a quick question? Brad, you are on mute. Brad is our second time here, and he is from San Diego Lions.
Hey, Brad.
Rancho Santee Lions, Santee, California. But you just mentioned butter. Are we talking about actual butter or margarine?
Good question. Yeah, actual butter, and I give you grass-fed butter. And again, it's real good to watch all the YouTubes on all of this. Margarine, especially those of us who grew up on Crisco, it's pretty impressive how bad that stuff is. So real grass-fed butter is quite good.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you in about 2 weeks.
Maybe tell them who's going to be here in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I had invited Dr. Geya Andel. She's an endocrinology and at my Lions Diabetes Camp medical director for type 1 diabetics. She is type 1 herself, and she has special interest in type 1 and type 2 and is going to give us a presentation in the next 2 weeks. So don't miss that. I will try to get that start early, so let's all be on time. Okay?
All right. Thank you,
All
everyone.
right.
And just hit us up if you have any questions in between or anything else you want us to follow up on.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.